Today on Locked On Phoenix Suns, we had a whole show planned and then the bombshell. The Suns are looking at a member of their front office, pre-existing member, to get a big, nice promotion. Brian Gregory. Who is he? What does it mean? And is it for real? Next.
You are Locked On Suns, your daily Phoenix Suns podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
Welcome back in to Locked On Phoenix Suns. I'm Brendon Kleen, a staff writer at Awful Announcing and a credentialed Suns media member. Thank you for making Locked On Suns your first listen here on this Thursday. Don't forget, Locked On Suns is free and available on all podcast platforms, including YouTube. So click that follow or subscribe button. Do what thousands of other Suns fans have already done. Become an everydayer and get locked on to the Phoenix Suns right here each and every day. Today's episode brought to you by the Amazon TV Stick Fire 4K. Turn any TV into your own personal Xbox. No console needed. Head to Amazon.com/FireTV Locked On to learn more. Who is Brian Gregory? What on earth does this latest report mean? And some new coaching candidates on the map. Joining me to break it all down, as always, from the wonderful West Valley, my fellow Suns credentialed media member. How are we feeling on this Wednesday afternoon, Ben Garcia?
Good. It just a lot of stuff hit the fan very quickly this afternoon. We got reports from everyone, so we'll dive right into it.
Let's do it. We have been tuning in with Mark Stein quite a bit as he's been on the lead on a lot of the Suns reports this offseason so far, and he had another one just before we did hit record. Now, I will say we're also going to deny a previous report of his later on in the show a little bit, so it's a little bit of, your head is scrambling. But Brian Gregory, a VP of player programming, is apparently a real candidate to become what we assume would be the lead decision maker here in the Valley at the top of the Suns front office. I'll throw the Mark Stein tweet up on the YouTube screen. Gregory already has a significant voice in Suns draft strategy, according to Mark Stein, and is highly regarded by owner Matt Ishbia. Ben, we should tell the people here, too, the background that Brian Gregory brought to the table. And that position even is a little bit unorthodox. Not every team has it. The woman who had it here before Brian Gregory had it was named Morgan Cato. She came from the league office. Player programming, if you think of it as basically engaging with the players as people, is kind of the way that most teams think of that position. Like, that person might be like corresponding with players' families or making sure they're set up and comfortable with like where they're living, or do you need a car? Like, that's kind of the stuff that position does, but all these things are just titles. Brian Gregory comes from the world of college basketball, and his origin story traces right back to where Matt Ishbia's does. Michigan State University, Tom Izzo, East Lansing. What does this tell you, Ben? What are your first thoughts?
Okay, so I want to preface my thoughts on this. I could be wrong. He could be awesome. He could have been, the guy behind drafting Dunn or behind drafting, guys from previous past that we've liked. So I want to preface it with not everything is doom and gloom. It could be great, but the early returns are, what the hell is this? You tell us you want to change, and instead of, like we talked about, Bob Myers, right? And him potentially coming to the Phoenix Suns. You and I were both a little skeptical on it, but we talked about what we were always going to compare that person to Bob Myers because the name got leaked. I mean, these guys aren't even in the same ballpark, man. And I would ask you, like, it feels like it's just a Matt Ishbia disciple that will do everything Ishbia says and sees the same vision. And instead of Mr. Outside Hire, a fresh new voice to come and change the perspective of the Phoenix Suns while also keeping some of the good things that they do here, it's Mr. Internal Hire to feel like to shut guys like me and you up. And so, like, I would ask you this, man. The way I like to, it feels like this guy is going to be the guy, by the way. The way I like to, think about how good a hire is what do our rivals think? When our rivals heard the other day that we could potentially be going after Bob Myers, like that would
Are you
frustrate them.
talking
Like,
about
God
like
dang it.
fans or who?
No,
What do
no,
you mean
no,
by
no, no, no.
rivals?
The Pacific Division, the Western Conference, the people directly
Oh, like
competing
just a
against the
kind of
Phoenix Suns.
imagining what they
Yes.
might think.
What are the Golden State Warriors thinking today? Like, damn. They got Gregory, the draft strategy guy, to come lead their operations, or are they thinking like, oh, Ishbia's gonna Ishbia. So I rambled there for a second, but I would ask you, man, like, what is your first thoughts on this? You saw me heavily eye rolling as soon as I heard East Lansing. Where do you stand?
Yeah, it can't possibly inspire a lot of confidence that this is going to be turning in a new direction. Not only is this a person who was the assistant coach, he was on the staff back when Ishbia played and the championship team at Michigan State, and was later a consultant for the Michigan State program during a season about a decade ago, and all those ties are obvious. That's probably why he even got the job on this front office. And just to be clear, he's only worked here for one season. It is also somebody who he doesn't have the type of experience or success that you would want, right? And so it's like he's overly connected to Ishbia in a way that it does not sit well with me if you're hoping for Ishbia to detach himself. He also is part of the existing front office that has failed. And his resume, while, yeah, he's experienced. He turns 59 later this year. He's been an assistant and a head coach all across the college basketball landscape dating 35 years back. Far be it from me to, like, act as if anybody with that type of resume is, like, a failure. But the dude has not been a high-level coach at any level. He has not been a highly successful guy. He's made the tournament, it looks like, twice, maybe 3 times as a head coach. And, the Michigan State stuff, sure, that's nice. But, okay, like, it wasn't like he was the associate head coach for 30 years. Like, you're talking about a top disciple. It's just a guy who has some proximity to Tom Izzo. So I don't even know how much I really buy into, like, he's some sort of heir apparent that's just going to be the next Tom Izzo. I think he would have shown us that if he was going to be. And then on top of all of that, do we really want a person here running this? And I would say this no matter who it was or if none of those connections to Ishbia existed. This guy has no experience in the NBA. That's a problem too. So I don't want to just rip it. I would imagine that the more, if this is the direction that the Suns go, the more that I hear, and if there's a press conference, if there's more reporting around this, maybe there's some things I could hear that would make me feel better about it, because I'm not going to pretend like I knew of this guy. I knew what his role was. I had heard of him because I've covered the team long enough, but I didn't know a ton about him. I had never thought of him in this capacity, so maybe I could be turned a little bit, but I do not even think it's close to the best they could do.
We reserve the right to change our minds. That's totally fair, and he could win us over in some other way. But what you said is exactly what I was going to ask you next. Brendon, you were saying, like, I don't mean to just rip it. Okay, fine, then praise it. Find the praise for it. Because that's what I was struggling to find. Because he hasn't even been a successful head coach anywhere. Like, he's been fine. He hasn't been a disaster. His last stop was in South Florida, where I'm assuming he got fired from that job, or at least let go in 2023, and then obviously over to the Phoenix Suns. But this is a guy with no experience and largely no success. Just because you've been somewhere for a really long time or in basketball for a really long time, it doesn't mean that you just have this inherent success with you. There are mediocre people in jobs everywhere. And so this not only feels cheap, it feels like it's a Matt Ishbia disciple who will do what Ishbia says. And it actually kind of annoyed me when they said something like, when some tweet was like, he's one of the lead draft strategy guys. Okay, that's cool. Then what the hell was James Jones doing? Like, if James Jones is supposed to be drafting the guys and you're the lead draft strategy guy, now we're trying to shift all the credit to this guy.
Well, nobody said the lead. It said a significant voice. Somebody that was like, that was, I think that was just describing his, why is that worse? He's part of the front office. I think it was just describing just to let people know, Mark Stein, a guy who just reports on the NBA, no one knows who the heck Brian Gregory is. I took that line as just here's what he did in Phoenix, not James Jones actually is a phantom. I mean, I think it's just saying that here's what he was up to.
I don't know, man. I don't buy into any of it. I can't believe. You know what's crazy? Here's a theory I have for you as well. Because we saw some other tweeting of like, it could take some time before that this decision's actually made. This almost feels similar to like the Isaiah Thomas rumors of, rumors that Isaiah Thomas could be a part of this team in some capacity, not front office, just some capacity. It got out. Everyone said this was the worst thing in the world that you could do. And then it ended up Matt Ishbia being like, I don't know what the heck they're talking about. It feels like this has a little bit of that to it, of like, leak it, see what people think, see if we can sneak it past the media. And if not, then we'll go a different direction. But that's how, I don't mean to rip it, man, but that's how bad of a hire this seems like. It's not even an outside guy. And like we talked about the success,
just to be fair, the Isaiah Thomas thing wasn't necessarily a bad hire. It was
he's terrible. He's not a great person.
And you were coming in after just having talked a big talk about how you were going to turn a new leaf after Robert Sarver actively, mistreated employees on the regular. So that was, I think, the Isaiah, pushback. I mean, if he had been brought in as an advisor, it would have been a failure. But, well, I'm just saying, I don't think this is, like, what do they call that? I can't think of the phrase that people use, a trial balloon. That's kind of what you're describing, where you say, hey, maybe we'll do this and see what the reaction is. I don't think it's that. I mean, no one knows who the heck this is. So there's not going to be a strong reaction to judge it on it. I think if this is percolating out there that Mark Stein would feel like he could report it, that tells me it's pretty real. I mean, I don't think there's going to be a very strong reaction to it outside of like, okay.
Well, exactly. Well, first off, I don't think that's also true either because one, like, come on, man. Michigan State, he was the assistant coach while Ishbia was there. Strong connection to that aspect of everything. And then it was a guy that's inside the building. He was part of the collective failure that I keep talking about. So,
yeah, but I just don't think that that's a surprise. I don't think that it's like, let's see what people think. Like this. Let's get to the next segment because I think we're getting into kind of what this means and everything else. And then not only what it means for what the searches looked like or whatever, but also what it could mean if he's hired. Next. First, today's show brought to you by the Amazon Fire TV Stick 4K. Did you know your Fire TV can also become an Xbox? Well, turn any TV into your gaming and entertainment hub with the Fire TV Stick 4K device. Just like that, with no console required. Just grab your paired controller, subscribe, or sign in to Xbox Game Pass Ultimate with EA Play, and you're ready to go. Dive into hundreds of premium titles from EA Sports College Football 25 to Call of Duty as easily as you stream your favorite shows. In addition, stream gigabytes, terabytes, millions of hours of content in one, well, I'm not going to say 100%, I'll just tell you it's 4K. On Netflix, YouTube, whatever streaming device that you love, in addition to the gaming capabilities. Head to Amazon.com/Fire TV Locked On to get started. Xbox Game Pass Ultimate subscription and compatible controller required. Available on select devices, including Fire TV Stick 4K 2nd Gen, Fire TV Stick 4K Max, and Fire TV Cube 3rd Gen. All right, Ben, keeping the show rolling here. So let's keep on that last thread of, we'll get into what it could mean if he's hired, but let's just go back to what it means that this is where the Suns are at. Okay, that the Myers thing kind of came and went. John Horst in Milwaukee used the Suns like a speed bag and got an extension from the Bucks. I don't even think that was even real that the Suns were interested in him. He just needed some leverage. And before there's ever even such and such guy from Boston or, promising young dude from this organization could fly to Phoenix this week to speak with Suns brass about a job leading the team. It immediately just goes to this person internally. And that's why that quick change, tend to just think it's pretty real, like you had said at the beginning, that you think this is the guy. I don't think it can't be a trial balloon and this is the guy. So I lean toward that it's probably the guy. And I think that it's not out of the realm of possibility. Something else you said, that money might be why. I mean, I don't know. It might be, it's going to be more than one thing, but the familiarity dating back to the Michigan State connection obviously is a big reason why they've gone this direction. But I don't know how crazy it really is to say this guy is not going to cost you $15 million a year or whatever the top executives would, like a Bob Myers or anybody else. It's crazy to say that about Matt Ishbia, but I can't think of a better explanation.
I can't think of one either. I don't know what it is. Like, it's again, it goes to how many people did you speak to? I know that they kind of were alluding to this being in the coaching search of like that they're going to take their time, they're going to be thorough, and all roads lead back to this guy. Like, I don't mean to take unnecessary shots at this guy, but we were hoping for something just different. I won't say Myers, I won't say Griffin, just something different, man. And now it leads me to this, like, how is this front office going to take shape? Like, you and I were discussing about roles and it's all schematic. I'm not even going to try to say the word. Semantics. Is that just who's in charge of who? You and I had discussed multiple times on the show. Is James Jones going to get a new boss? Or is James Jones gonna be gone? Is James Jones going to stay? And is someone that was below him just 6 months ago going to be ahead of him? And I understand that these are all like, it's just.
Well, here's why I say it's fairly semantic in this case. I don't think it's always semantic, but when we were kind of talking before and I said that, what I mean is that if your big move to overhaul this whole thing is promoting a person who already was a prominent part of this whole thing, I don't really care what you're calling it. You're not changing anything. That's why I think it's semantic. I don't really care if suddenly, I shouldn't say I don't care. It will feel and look different what this team is to have Brian Gregory running things if that's where this goes, because we're all in agreement. Matt Ishbia is a freaking CEO. Do you know the amount of SEC investigations that would come if they found that he was wasting his time running second-round player tape deep into the night at his desk in Michigan? That would be lunacy. Nobody thinks he's doing that. So the person running day-to-day, it will feel different. But for all intents and purposes, the vision, the 30,000-foot directive that this franchise is operating under, it's not going to be different if it's somebody who is buddies with Matt Ishbia and who has already been around this team. So whether his title is president, whether it's GM, frankly, whether James Jones stays or goes, what evidence do we have that anything is actually going to capital C change? That's why I think it's semantic.
Well, the only way it's going to change is if you move James Jones now, because then you can tell me, I'm not saying it's going to be a great hire. I'm not going to say I'm going to buy into it, but at least then you can tell me it's a completely different person who's running all those things. GM, president of basketball operations, just taking over that new gig. And again, maybe that is part of the money. You let James Jones walk, you don't have to pay him either. And again, I'm not buying into any of that, but I'm just saying those are some of the things you can do. And you said it as well, man. It's kind of exactly what I was alluding to is what are we doing? There's no change here. This is the same exact thing that you promised us wasn't going to be the same exact thing 2 weeks ago. And now you and I questioned, like, why were those two guys up there? Like, why was anyone up there? Because we just got different answers, but the same results. And that's what kind of frustrates me with this, man.
And you want to talk about how it's kind of like been framed publicly with, you know, the way that Ishbia has kind of danced around his own involvement, or, you know, like we'll circle back on in the last segment here, some of the stuff about, like, has the coaching search been led by Jones here in the early stages or not, or any of that. The other framing of the public part of it that I think is a little bit of a mistake now in hindsight is, why haven't we heard more about this guy if he's been such a spectacular voice and figure in how everything's been run? Like even at that press conference when Ishbia is trying to tell us like, oh, I'm not scouting, I'm not making the draft picks, this and that, and it was a little bit of a, swerving around the question. Well, why not say, I want to take actually a moment to shout out Brian Gregory. He's been a fantastic hire when it comes to that stuff. And I really think if we're just talking about the positives and some of the things we do want to build on, even though the season was disappointing, I think Ryan and Oso were really special rookies. And Brian had a lot to do with that. He worked with James really well. You know what? You could do that. Or a freaking anonymous report. We've heard so much. There's been so much reporting about this team as it's imploded in a blaze of fire for the past 2 months. Never one time did this guy's name come up as, Ishbia has grown fond of Brian Gregory. I mean, that's just saying like reporters go get more information. I can't tell you what to figure out. But you know what I'm saying? Like, it's crazy to me that if this guy's been so valuable, we haven't heard more about it, which leads me to believe, has he? Has he actually been a really big, successful part of this? Or is it just a person that Ishbia is comfortable with?
Can I just ask you this? Like, just yes or no, do you think this guy's qualified to take this job?
Yeah, I mean, sure.
Okay, well then,
what is the qualification for this type of job? Guys skip
honestly,
the line all the time.
Well, honestly, man, because I mean, Bartelstein's more qualified for this job than that guy. He was an assistant GM with the Detroit Pistons at one point. I'm just saying this guy was a head coach somewhere. I don't even know where they found this guy. I had texted you before this because you had said you've been covering the team for a lot longer than I am. I was like, I didn't even know this guy existed up until 3 hours ago. And like, that's a problem. That you're right. We haven't heard anything. It doesn't feel like he's qualified for this job. It feels like it's someone that Ishbia can control. And again, shift blame to when things go wrong, just how like it was with James Jones. And then it leads back to nothing is going to change. And then it also does bother me because I want to know the clarity. Who's in charge? Who's calling the shots? Are they going to work collaboratively? Because we just did that and it didn't work. So I don't know.
Probably would know that once the hire is made and we hear about it. This is just this is just the first report. But I agree, it's a big concern that if you change so little, there's going to be less change with the rest of this. If you keep it in-house, then that gives you the green light to say, oh, and James is going to stay, and, because this is a new opportunity for Brian, then we hope that Josh can help him, transition into the role and, this and that. I think the concerns are relevant. I don't know exactly how it will look, but it's not great.
Do you think Ishbia cares about, there's no way this is going to get good reviews? Do you think Ishbia cares? There's no way, right? In after the press conference, when it's all said and done, everyone, I think collectively, is going to say, what the hell are they doing? Do you think he cares? Or do you think he just wants control?
Oh, I think he cares. I think he's incredibly aware of public perception.
Okay.
He went out last year, spoke way sooner than he had any reason to speak. And, I mean, he was every second word out of his mouth. I'm talking 2024 after the sweep. Every second word out of his mouth was how wrong the media was. That's what led to the 26 other teams would want to be us thing. I think he's very, very aware. I mean, he's a younger guy. He's a first-time, young owner in terms of experience. He thinks he's hot stuff in terms of doing things the right way. He knows what our freaking podcast is, which, with all due respect, I don't know if he should, so I mean, I think he does care, but I think at the end of the day, that only goes so far, and wanting to do things his way and wanting to be involved prominently, those two things seem to be more important. I think all of it's important, but I think that's what he really is winning out here.
Well, the reason why I asked that is I'm trying to get in the mind of Ishbia on how he thinks this is going to change everything. Like, what is he going to say at the presser? I can't find it, man. I can't get into this irrational of a thought process. And I hope at least we hear that they brought in a bunch of guys for interviews, because this is sloppy work.
I mean,
what? This
is
sloppy work. I would agree with you. Yeah. I don't think that they have, but this is sloppy work. This is everything that they said that they were going to do. They did the opposite. So
yeah, so far it seems that way. Let's talk about coaching, which will be the next domino to fall if this goes through, and seemingly already moving along even without this going through. Next. First today's show brought to you by the FanDuel Sportsbook. The NBA playoffs are here, and FanDuel is giving new customers an incredible way to get in on the action every single night. Right now, when you join FanDuel and place your first $5 bet, you'll get $250 in bonus bets if your bet wins. FanDuel makes it super easy to get involved, whether it's picking your favorite team or diving into player props. Let's dive in, speaking of, and see what is going on here in terms of big favorites. Just go ahead and get your $5 bonus, or your $250 bonus with the $5 win is what I should say. You can go who's going to hit a home run. Those can be a little risky. Baseball's just not in full swing. It's like bet against the White Sox, bet for Judge to hit a home run. Those ones can kind of pay off, but it's playoff time. That makes it hard, guys. I wish I had a better answer for you. You might just have to test your luck, but if you get it right at FanDuel.com, that's $250 in bonus bets straight to your account to have even more fun with the action. Let's close it out, Ben. Another report from John Gambadoro, which will overrule something we talked about earlier in the week with regard to James Jones, who Mark Stein said was overseeing the early stages of this coaching search. Gambo said, we'll start from the bottom on the graphic here, folks, that the report is incorrect, that Jones is involved in the coaching search. Okay, take that or leave it. And then he basically, this was before the Stein thing about Brian Gregory. This just backs up everything we've been talking about. He expects the Suns front office changes to be announced in the next 48 hours or so, or early next week at the latest. And then the coaching search will begin. Now, on top of that, we heard from Michael Scotto at Hoops Hype, who gave us our first list of potential head coach hires here in the Valley with a couple of additional names. Dave Bliss from Oklahoma City and Jordan Ott from Cleveland. Now, I will say Jordan Ott is not somebody that I had on my radar, but Dave Bliss, Ben, is somebody where when we were talking about coaching a couple different times early this offseason, and I had just been ripping through the general names that I knew on some of the best staffs in the league, he did come up. And I like his background a lot because he came up as kind of a player development guy and defensive guy. He's been in a lot of different situations. The Thunder, when KD was there, we'll leave that aside for a moment. The Knicks, and now back to the Thunder and everything else. What did you think of these two names?
Well, the two names are exactly who they should be going towards. Now, in terms of like teams, especially under guys that I like, especially the Cavs head coach in Kenny Atkinson, a guy who I was rooting for the Suns to be the head coach 2 years ago under Frank Vogel. So that fits the idea of what I like. But these two guys and adding them along with Brian and Sweeney and potentially Jared Dudley and Royal Ivy, like the list is good. I don't hate any of these potential hires, maybe outside of Jared Dudley, but everything else is exactly what you should be doing. Pick off from some of the teams that have had success over the last couple of seasons. The Mavericks went to the finals last year. And defensively, Sweeney, as you've mentioned before, seems like could play a hand on making this team a little bit more nastier. And then I don't think anything beats out Johnny Bryant for me, just because he's the associate head coach under Atkinson. And then Bliss as well. But the problem is both of these guys feel like they're going to be highly sought after. And I question the Suns' ability to be able to get them. That was my reaction. What about yours?
Yeah, I don't know. I think this category of coach, I still think the Suns are probably going to be one of the better destinations. We don't know what the money thing will look like if Ishbia tries to kind of lowball because he has so much on the books with the previous guys that have been fired. Maybe that changes, but I think you look at like the Kings and the Grizzlies, and I don't know, both of those teams could blow it up this summer. And if so, I think the Suns are more appealing. Even if they don't fully blow it up, I think the Suns are more appealing. And then when you're talking about like the Nuggets or maybe the Bucks, although I don't know if they don't keep Giannis, that's a bad job to take. But the Nuggets, they're going to be looking for championship ready, probably experienced coaches. So I don't know. I don't know if I agree that the Suns are fully kind of, second fiddle here. But as far as the guys, Bliss is a defensive guy. I was digging around on Ott previously to kind of see, usually you'll be able to tell, is this an offense or a defense type of guy? It doesn't feel like he's maybe has a reputation on one side of the ball or the other, at least at the highest kind of national reporting level. So I'm not sure there, but most of the names fit that bill, and I like that. That's at least in line with what Ishbia has said, and I think what we kind of know, as we were talking about with the identity conversation yesterday, that probably should be the focus. If you assume maybe the roster is a little more offensively oriented, the coaching staff is maybe a little more defense. That was kind of the idea with Vogel. I can understand the vision of all of that. The question that I come away from, the more names we hear though, Ben, because I kind of left this under the rug for a minute on purpose. Ott, before the Cavs, which he's only been at for 1 year, he was with the Lakers 2 years before that. The bulk of his experience was in Brooklyn from 2016 to 2022, which means if you go Ivy, Bliss, and Ott, that's 3 coaches who have direct experience on coaching staffs for teams that Kevin Durant played for. That's just too much of a pattern now for me to fully ignore it.
That you think that they're... I noticed it with Bliss.
I'm not going to make a prediction. I'm saying it on purpose the way I'm saying it. I think it's interesting as a pattern, and it makes me think.
Well, and the reason why you're saying that is because we've heard before, whether it's Chris Haynes or the Suns keeping Kevin Durant is not out of the realm of possibility, basically is what you're trying to say. If it's a guy that KD jives with. You're not saying that's going to happen, but that's where you're alluding to in terms of that's what the Suns could be thinking. And I saw that with Bliss and Ivy, which is why as soon as you had said it before, I was like, yeah, I don't know if I'm rooting for that because I want the Suns to start figuring out the next great Phoenix Suns team. I didn't realize that with Jordan Knott, and shame on me for doing so. But in the brief research that I saw, I didn't even put those 2 and 2 together, which means it feels like it's too many guys out of the 6 that we've heard. Like it becomes a pattern then, and it shows. Maybe they're not going to move on from this guy, man. I don't know. Yeah. It's a lot it's
all hearsay until we get, more concrete, but it's at least, like we both said now, a pattern. And so I'll just also say on the positive, I don't hate any of these names. I think it's the right way that they should be looking.
Favorite?
I think younger. I think defensive primarily, although Bryant is an offensive guy. I think that all makes sense. A lot of these guys are former players, even in the pros, like Ivy and obviously Dudley and whatever.
Bryant.
I like that. So I haven't heard a name I hate. I'm glad we haven't, if you flash back 2 summers ago, we were all kind of, okay, Kevin Young sounds kind of interesting. Nick Nurse would be really good. Maybe they can't get him. We'll see. And then all of a sudden, it didn't happen, of course, but off the top rope, you hear Doc Rivers is flying to Phoenix. And we were all like, really? And so that hasn't happened. And I think you have to feel pretty decently about that. But,
who's your favorite?
I don't, probably still Bryant, but
Me too.
I'm more like that. I'm more like the idea that all of the names are pointing in the same direction and signal that they're looking in what I think is the right place. Like, I care more that I don't see a name I don't like than picking the one I like the best, if that makes sense.
I get what you're saying. If I had to pick one right now as a favorite that I would like, it's still Johnny Bryant because of Kenny Atkinson. Resumes matter to me. And yeah, you guys have other good resumes, but I just have guys that I show some favoritism towards. Atkinson was with the Warriors at one point when they were winning those championships. I like that resume as well. And just so a guy that's learning under him, who's the associate head coach, I can live with that. So I like Johnny Bryant. I hope that's the case. But you're right. If they hired any of these guys, I wouldn't be upset unless the direction was we're keeping the band back together, baby.
Yeah.
So.
All right, much more as the week continues. Hit follow or subscribe if you have not already. Become an everydayer. We'll have a new show for you Thursday and Friday before the week is over. And if we've learned anything, it's going to be absolute insanity. We'll talk to you tomorrow.